Alright, lesson 44, simplifying and comparing decimal numbers. This is my third lesson today, so I want to get this out to my students so that they will be able to start their homework early. Okay, so in order to simplify and compare decimal numbers, the first thing you got to understand is our decimals. So if you have 3 and, say, 4/10, 3 and 4/10 is the same as 3 and 40/100. Okay? Or 3 and 400,000. Basically what you're doing is you're saying 4/10 is equal to 40/100 is equal to 400/1000. That's what I just did right there. So if you start with 400/1000, you can reduce that to, if you divide top and bottom by a common factor of 100, 400 divided by 100 is 4. 1000 divided by 100 is going to be 10. And so you basically are reducing 400 thousandths to 4/10. In decimal form, how you reduce it is you just erase those two zeros. Okay? And that does not change the meaning at all of this number. This is still 3 and 4/10. You can add as many zeros as you want, or as a small amount of zeros as you want. So let's do a couple problems. Explain. Alright, let's go ahead and do an example problem. Alright, this is a 0.25 or 25 hundredths times 4 hundredths. And if you guys wanted to multiply this out, you could convert this to a fraction and multiply across on a fraction. Some people think fractions are easier. So let's do 25 hundredths, and we know that that is the same as 1/4 because you guys have memorized fractions, decimals, percents. Oh my! Don't worry, I don't have to rip out your bag right now. I can't check it anyway. Anyway, and then we're going to multiply that by 4/100ths, because that's 4/100ths. Alright, but we're not doing fractions, we're doing decimals. So let's go ahead and multiply this out. 4 times 5 is going to be 20. Carry the 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 2 that we carried is going to be 10. Carry your 1. 4 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. Alright, so I could cancel this out, cancel that out, take 0 times 5 and give 0, 0 times 2 is 0. Basically have a line of zeros and add it in, but I don't necessarily need to do that. Now, the next step, your answer is not 100. Your next step is to find out where we're going to place the decimal over here. In order to do that, there's a little trick. You just look on top, and you notice how many places has the decimal been moved over. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, on top of the problem, the decimal has been moved over a total of 4 places. So if it's been moved over 4 places on top, then that's how many places we need to move it over on bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the decimal point is right there. We're clearly going to need a placeholder 0. Alright, erase my little bunny hops. So our answer is going to be 110 thousandths. Remember, you count over starting here. This is going to be your tenths spot. This is going to be your hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths. So this is 110 thousandths. And so let's go ahead and write that out. 110 thousandths. And if you were to reduce this, divide top and bottom by 100, it's going to reduce to 1 over 100. So 1/100th. In that case, you just erase those two zeros. But basically, if you didn't want to do all this step right here, because this can be tedious, there's a much easier way to do it. You look at your decimal. You go to your first non-zero number, which is, that's a 0 number, that's a 0 number. 1 is a non-zero number. And then you just erase all the zeros to the right. Only erase the zeros to the right. You still need that 0 right there. That's like a placeholder 0. But all the zeros to the right of the non-zero number, which 1 is a non-zero number, so all the zeros to the right of 1, you erase them. And then this right here is in your 10th hundredth spot. So you have 1/100th, which is what you got. If you did it over here, it would look something like this. You can cross-cancel the 4s, get a 1. Cross-cancel, get a 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 100 is 100. So that's the same answer all around. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's do a couple more problems, then I'll help you on your homework, and we'll be done with this lesson. Alright, example number 2. Here we have 3/10, and this is not a 0. That's just a circle where you're going to put either greater than, less than, or equal to. Greater than, less than, or equal to. You're going to put one of those signs in there. So you're basically comparing what's bigger, 3/10 or 303 thousandths. In order to do this, we're going to write an equivalent decimal, and you can put as many zeros after 3/10 as you need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write an equivalent decimal that has the same number of places as this decimal right here. So in this one we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I want to have tenths, hundredths, thousandths for this number. We know that 3 is in the 10th spot, so I'm going to put 3 right there. And you can add as many zeros after 3 as you need to. Remember, if you had $3, you could put a decimal right there. You could add 2 zeros to the right, and that would still be $3. So same thing with this. Imagine this was 30 cents. Okay? I could add another 0, and that would still be 30 cents. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add 2 zeros. Bang, bang. Alright, then I'm going to bring this part straight down. 0.303. Alright, what is bigger? 300? I'm going to erase this. 300 thousandths or 303 thousandths? Clearly, 300 thousandths is going to be smaller than 303 thousandths. This number right here has 3 more thousandths than this does. So it is slightly larger. Okay? So that is how you compare numbers. Basically, you go as opposite of as simplifying a decimal is you go to the first non-zero number and add some zeros after it in order to add understanding. So let's do one more. Alright, what's bigger, 0.2 or 0.25? 2/10 or 25 hundredths? In order to do this, you want to write an equivalent decimal that's equal to 0.2. In order to that, you're going to need 2 decimal places. Now this is not a 0, this is just a where I'm going to put my answer, because I'm comparing this decimal with 0.25. Alright, so we know that there are 2 decimal places that need to happen here. Or 2 places to the right of the decimal. The reason why I picked 2 spaces is because this number has 2 spaces. However many spaces or places that are in the largest or the longest, not the largest, but the longest decimal, that's how many spaces should be on this side. So since there's 2 place values here, there should be two place values there. So I'm going to put the 2, since the 2 is directly to the right of the decimal here, I'm going to put the 2 directly to the right of the decimal here. Then I'm just going to add a 0. And it's very clear to see that 20 cents is smaller than 25 cents. Alright, so there's another example about how to compare. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and place these 4 decimals in order from least to greatest. Before we do this, we're basically comparing, because we want to know which one is smaller. We're going to rewrite each of these decimals so that there are at least, not at least, but exactly 3 places for the decimal point. So you go to the longest decimal, and in this case, it's going to be tenths, hundredths, thousandths. This one goes to the thousandths. This one only goes to the hundredths. This one goes to the thousandths. So we're going to rewrite each one of these decimals so that with an equivalent decimal, that goes to the thousands. So for 0.3, I want 0.300. Alright, we've went to the thousands. And 0.300 is equivalent to 0.3. We're going to do the same thing. Or this one we don't need to change because it already goes to the thousands. This one we're going to have to change because it only goes to the hundreds. We're going to make sure that we're going to add a 0 so that each one of these decimals has the place value to the thousands. Alright, so we're going to go for this one, it's going to be 0.235. Now, it's a lot easier to write these in order. This is 300 thousandths, this is only 42 thousandths, this is 240 thousandths, and this is 235 thousandths. So 300 is the largest. 42 is going to be the smallest. So if I want to write this in order from least to greatest, I'm going to put 0.042. That's the least. 42. Then we're going to go to 235 and 240. Which one is larger or smaller? Which one is smaller? That would be 235 because 235 is less than 240. So I'm going to put 0.235 is next. Now, after that, it's going to be 0.240. Now, after that, it's going to be 300, because 300 is going to be the largest out of these 4 decimal numbers. Now you can simplify if you want. You go to the first non-zero number, and you erase all the zeros after that non-zero number. First non-zero number, there aren't any zeros to erase. Same here. First non-zero number, or the last non-zero number is 5. There's no zeros erased. The last non-zero number is 4. That means I can erase that number. Last non-zero number is 3. That means I can erase those 2 zeros. So, your answer is as follows. Alright, homework help. Number 1 on your homework. It wants a third multiple of 4 and a third multiple of 5. So the third multiple of 4, that would be 4, 8, 12. 12 is a third multiple of 4. Now let's find the third multiple of 5. It would be 5, 10, 15. That's the third multiple of 5. And it wants the sum of those two numbers. So you're basically going to take 12 plus 15. And 12 plus 15 is going to be 27. Alright, so the answer number 1 is 27. Alright, let's do number 5 on your homework. I'm going to take 5 1/3 minus w equals 4. Alright, what side do I start on? This side with a variable. Remember, every algebra equation has two sides separated by the equal sign. So, I start on this side. I want to isolate the variable, so I want to get rid of 5 1/3. So if I want to get rid of it, I'm going to subtract it. 5 1/3. If I subtract 5 1/3 from this side, that means I have to subtract 5 1/3 from this side. Okay? And this cancels out, so all I'm left with is a negative w. Okay? Now, I can't take 5 away from 4 without getting a negative answer. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 5 1/3 minus 4. 1/3 minus nothing is 1/3. 5 minus 4 is 1. So I'm going to get 1 1/3. Now I take the sign of the bigger number. I have a positive 4 and a negative 5 1/3. What number is bigger, 4 or 5? Obviously 5 1/3 is bigger. So I'm going to take the sign of the bigger number, put it there. Now, I have a negative w and a negative 1 1/3. So I'm going to make them both positive. So w is going to equal 1 1/3. If you want to check that, you just plug it in. 5 1/3 minus w, which would be 1 1/3. And the answer would be 4. Alright, last problem we're going to go over. Number 10. We got 8 1/2 divided by 1/2. Now remember a couple lessons ago, we practiced writing division problems that were equivalent. So we got 8 1/2 divided by 1/2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double both of these. I'm going to take 8 1/2, multiply it by 2, and 1/2 and multiply it by 2. Okay? 8 1/2 multiplied by 2 is going to be equal to 9. Well, let's say 1/2 times 1/2 1/2 times 2 is going to be 1. Okay, so 8 1/2 times 2 is going to be 8 times 2 is 16, plus that is going to be 17. So this is going to be 17 divided by 1, which will equal 17. 8 1/2 divided by 1/2 is 17. So hopefully that makes sense. I will see you guys soon. Have a nice night.